So it looks like Marvel has crowned their new lead superhero, but will the actor be around long enough to fulfill that role? Let's get into it. Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode here on Ord's World. I am Ords, and if you guys like past, present, and future speculation on pop culture news, along with reactions and product reviews, this is the place to be. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscription button down below. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and you can help me greatly by hitting that subscription button. With that said, guys, let's get into this article. All right, so today's article we're taking a look at is from GiantFreakinRobot.com. Robert Downey Jr.'s replacement as lead character for Marvel has been named. Now, if you guys watched my trailer reaction of the No Way Home Spider-Man trailer, go over there and watch it. I kind of say something along the lines of that, like, I believe that, Doctor Strange is going to take over the mantle of the Tony Stark character, or the lead character in kind of the Marvel cinematic universe. Turns out I was pretty wrong on that, and they kind of went the way that everyone kind of expected them to, or at least in most recent speculation. After his perfect portrayal of Tony Stark / Iron Man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe for just over a decade, Robert Downey Jr. has left an indelible impression on the hearts and minds of fans the world over. Now, I would agree. I mean, it started with him, and at least up to Phase 3 ended with him. And the way they kind of nodded his character out, or the way they took his character, I thought was very graceful. I thought it was very well planned out, the way they did it. You couldn't ask for a better ending to a character, I think, despite all the issues that Endgame and all those other movies had. I thought it was a great way to say goodbye to the character. Now that his character's tenure in the franchise has ended, Marvel Studios is looking for a new hero to lead the Avengers. It's a passing of the torch moment for sure, but something that has been a long time coming. No, I agree. And it's funny because I think a lot of people thought that Captain Marvel was going to take over as that lead, and I think Marvel realized how awful the Captain Marvel character was. Mostly Brie Larson. What a dry piece of toast she is as that character. I think they could have done some great things with Captain Marvel, but instead, I think that's where they were originally going to go. I think they were originally going to take Captain Marvel and make her the lead, but people just weren't having it. And so we're getting somebody new. In a recent interview with GQ, Avengers Endgame co-director Joe Russo said Tom Holland is set to replace Robert Downey Jr. as the soul of the Marvel Cinematic Universe because Ms. Marvel didn't work out. So they have to go with their most popular character. Let's remember that Spider-Man is I would have to say, is Marvel's most popular character. So most people, I think, are excited about this new Spider-Man movie coming out, and I think that's why they would pick it. I don't necessarily think that Spider-Man, or the Tom Holland Spider-Man, is a good idea to lead the Avengers. I definitely think that, as a young Spider-Man, he's still learning. So I think it's kind of a bad move. But again, they don't really have anybody else to fill that void. Captain Marvel didn't do it. So, of course, they're going to look to the next best thing, or the most popular thing, or the thing that makes the money, which is going to be Tom Holland, or Tom Holland's Spider-Man. The director discussed how Marvel has been slowly grooming Holland to take over for Downey Jr., saying, to quote, Tom is stepping into the role that Robert Downey Jr. once occupied for Marvel, which is the favorite character and, in a lot of ways, the soul of the Marvel universe. So like I was saying, he's the most popular character, so why wouldn't they go with him? They want to sell tickets, and I think all the hype surrounding the Spider-Man movie is probably the most hype we've had for a Marvel movie in a long time. And honestly, I think people are interested in a Spider-Verse movie. They're not interested in everything that comes out, especially when you look at how the Eternals has done in theaters. I think it made a lot of money. If you look at Rotten Tomatoes, I think the critic score is worse than the audience score. So I'm guessing a lot of people just thought it was a good popcorn flick to go check out some cool special effects and kind of, wave some shiny objects in front of your face and distract you for a few hours. But I don't think it's it drives the MCU like further and better, like some of the movies before, like Doctor Strange. Now, I think Doctor Strange is probably a better idea for somebody to take over that role. Not only does it have the age and the understanding, I think it just makes sense, especially when you look at the trailer and you see the scenes that we have in Spider-Man No Way Home. It just kind of makes sense that like Doctor Strange would take over that role, whereas we do have a young Peter Parker, and it's hard for me to think of like Peter Parker Spider-Man telling Doctor Strange and Hulk and all the other guys like what to do and kind of leading that team. Just seems a little weird to me. But I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about that in the comments down below. After a historic partnership between Sony and Marvel Studios in 2015, you guys remember when all that shit went down, right? Like when they were fighting about it seems like Sony and Marvel have been fighting about Spider-Man for years now, but made his big screen debut, but this time it wasn't through an extensive origin story. Yeah, because that had been done to death before. We didn't need another Spider-Man origin story, just like we don't need another Batman origin story. Tom Holland was first introduced as Peter Parker in Captain America's Civil War when Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark recruited him to join his team. From a Marvel perspective, this was a bit of a pivot on how they had done things, but it totally worked. No, I thought Civil War was a great movie. I thought it was a great way to introduce the Spider-Man character. Again, we didn't need an origin story for Spider-Man. We already know it. We know how it goes. We've seen the cartoons. We've seen the comic books. We've seen the two trilogies that came out before this one. So I thought they did good. And again, I enjoyed Civil War. I thought it was a good movie. All right, so here's where it gets interesting, is because we have speculation, and just not 24 hours before this other article dropped, you have this article. Tom Holland confirms he's done with Spider-Man. And again, speculation here, uncertainty about him actually playing or continuing to be Spider-Man, maybe wanting to do different projects, try different things, basically saying that he doesn't want to be playing the character in his 30s, which I totally get. He's reached out and done other projects. He's working on other projects currently. And I think when you get typecast as you get older, it becomes very difficult, even with the Marvel backing, it becomes very difficult to find projects that people are going to look at you in a different light. A lot of people will see Tom Holland in a movie and always think Spider-Man. So I don't blame the kid for wanting to get out, and especially with all the craziness that's going on with Marvel and the MCU and all the wokeness that's going on with them. Like, I don't blame him for wanting to get out at all. All right, so to go on with the article, Robert Downey Jr. has officially retired his Iron Man suit. Tom Holland was named Superhero of the Year in their newest issue of GQ. Interestingly, the actor said he was a little weary about playing the character for too long. To quote, "Maybe it's time for me to move on. Maybe what's best for Spider-Man is that they do a Miles Morales film. I have to take Peter Parker into account as well, because he is an important part of my life." I agree. I think this is a smart thing to say. He's basically saying, I have to take into account that this character that I've played, he's been a very important part. I know that he trained very hard for this role. He really dove into like who Spider-Man is, and honestly, and a lot of people don't like him as Spider-Man, but honestly, I think he's up there with the Raimi Spider-Man stuff, the freaking Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. I think he holds a candle to him very much so. Now, the Miles Morales thing is very interesting. I think that they could do that. They can introduce it with this No Way Home, and they just may do that. Maybe he's hinting at something. I don't know. But I think a Miles Morales film would be just fine. I mean, we got the Spider-Verse movie, which they animated, which I thought was absolutely great. We do something similar to that. Obviously not the same thing, maybe something different, but I think it would be totally cool to do a Miles Morales Spider-Man movie. I mean, he's a popular enough character, and he was popular before all this crazy wokeness stuff that was going on. So I definitely think that they could go in that angle. And to quote Holland here, he says, if I'm playing Spider-Man after I'm 30, I've done something wrong. And I agree with him. And kind of the reason why I think Robert Downey Jr. decided to dip out as well. But let me head over to this other article and take a look here. Just kind of go over this a little bit here. It's nice to think that Tom Holland would be part of a transitionary process around bringing in a new person to play the characters of Spider-Man. The timeline that I've gave for that eventually is a bit curious, leaving it open to a year from now or 5. Doesn't sound like a guy who thinks he's going to be doing this all that much longer. Yeah, like I said, I think he's ready to move on. You know, and again, I think he's earned it. You know, all the shit that he's done with Marvel. I mean, he's already been in what, like 6 movies or some shit like that. So I think that it makes perfect fucking sense that he wants to get out of here. And do something different with his life. Not to mention, like, again, working for Marvel, Disney, you have a bunch of rules. It's very tight, you know, high expectations, I'm sure, with Marvel, but that is part of the gig, I guess. And right now, Spider-Man is kind of the only thing that people are getting hyped for. People don't really care about the Eternals. And again, you got Morbius, which I think people are excited about, another Spider-Man thing. Or I think, you know, which kind of ties into Spider-Man anyway. I think people are very excited about a Spider-Verse, maybe a Spider-Verse movie cinematic universe, but you know, involving him into the MCU. And I think people are just burnt out on this stuff. But you notice Spider-Man always gets the hype going. So Tom Holland and the studio might be biding some time to see what ultimately happens with No Way Home. I agree. They're going to wait to see what the numbers are for that. And I think that movie's going to do great. I think people are hyped about it. If you haven't checked out my trailer reaction, go check it out. I'm hyped for the movie. This is something that I've wanted to see since I was a kid. Hopefully they do it justice. That latter movie is likely to be a blockbuster of the highest order, though the story could give real insight into the character's future if there is one at all. Like, you could easily do it, right? You could easily bring in the Miles Morales character, and I think that's somebody that people would accept. You know, a Miles Morales character, because again, he's been popular for a long time, and it makes sense. So you could use this Spider-Verse movie, No Way Home, to introduce a Miles Morales. Even if, let's say, Tom Holland decides to play the character for another few more years, you can begin to slowly introduce that character, unlike they did with like the Mortal Kombat movie, where they introduced Cole, the new character. Never been in a video game, never been in a storyline. Just all of a sudden we have this new character that we didn't get to know, that we didn't get to grow on us. I think that's important. If you're going to introduce a Miles Morales or a new Spider-Man character, or somebody to take up that mantle, you got to do it over time. You can't just throw him in there. I think people are going to respect it more. A character that we can grow to love and appreciate, then taking over the mantle of Spider-Man, I think is probably the most appropriate way to do it. And it sounds like Tom Holland, you know, is at least willing to hang on until they get some kind of replacement in there. But you know, hey, what do I know? I'm just a dork here reading articles and talking to you guys about it. But anyway, guys, that's the video. Very interesting. Is Tom Holland going to stick around to play Spider-Man? Is he going to take over the role? And again, honestly, I think Doctor Strange would be a better fit for the lead of the Avengers, however you want to say it. But let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about all this. If you guys think Tom Holland's going to peace out from the MCU sometime soon, or if you think he's going to hang on in there until they introduce a new character, which is kind of what I think. I think they're going to give it a few years. They're going to see how this movie goes, give it a few years, and I think if you gradually introduce a Miles Morales character, I think that is going to go over a lot better than just throwing in a character that nobody, you know, cares about, or a actor, or, you know, that nobody cares about. You guys get what I'm saying. Anyway, it doesn't matter. That's the end of the video. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about all of this. Love to have that conversation with you down below. Also, again, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscription button down below. Hit that bell for notifications, all that good shit. And we will catch you in the next one. Remember, everybody, party on.